All right, so what happens though, I mean, I see people with outside the waistband guns all the time, and just being a boy, I think I want to touch it.
Same concept, control, but I'm gonna control this wrist, and I'm gonna take my forearm and come over the other. Take this hand, I'm gonna come under, and I'm gonna bunch your elbow to my body as I turn my shoulder forward. And now, that gives me a lot of options, whether I wanna disengage, or if as you're doing it, I wanna come here, right? You see how you just took a step?
Yeah, man, you're pulling me down.
If you did that, boom.
Oh gosh,
right here.
jeez.
And now I have access.
Jeez.
And you don't.
Sir, sir. All right, so you bought a gun. You've got a concealed carry license, permit, etc., or you live in a free state that doesn't demand that you have a superfluous document in your wallet to do what the Second Amendment says you should or could be able to do. You get in a street fight, you get in a scuffle, and that gun gets taken away, knocked away, or you are unable to deploy or employ it because somebody like this dude is on top of you, choking you to death. That's what we're going to talk about today. We've got our good buddy Todd Fox out. Talk a little bit about yourself.
My name is Todd Fox. I run a group called the Close Protection Group. We are a security firm doing protective security. Been in business since 1999. I'm a former Marine, former SWAT guy, former professional fighter, current Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai guy.
So Todd owns a company that protects the rich and famous, people that you've seen on the silver screen, Supreme Court justices. He just won a national title in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, IBJJF tournament, right? Perfect dude for the task because he's done all these things in a training capacity and in a real world capacity, and he's gonna share some of those skills with us, how to retain your weapon. So weapon retention, like when most people think of it, could I see your dummy gun real quick, please?
This one.
And guys, we're just training with dummy guns here, which are completely inert hunks of plastic. So we're gonna point them at each other. That's why we have them. Don't train these weapon retention exercises with a real gun. Get the inert training tool, do the right thing. Don't be a dickhead. But a lot of times you think weapon retention, or you see it in social media land, and you immediately think of some drill like this where some guy's destroying a cardboard target and it looks cool, and he steps back and shoots the target again, and that's weapon retention, right?
That's not.
Okay, that's not weapon retention.
That's not. So the first thing that we would talk about is, how you're carrying it, right? A lot of guys carry it appendix, some guys carry it 3 o'clock. If you're law enforcement or military, or you're in some states, you're carrying it exposed. Your setup, your mission, your duty, your objective is gonna determine how you're carrying your gun or how you can carry your gun. And so we've got a bunch of different setups, from a standard rigger's belt to a more modern kind of flexible belt to a low pro setup to a law enforcement style setup here, and then some miscellaneous types of holsters, from pancake holsters to Kydex holsters to level 3 retention holsters here.
Gear selection, just to make sure I understand, should support the mission. Could be me going to church or the mall. It could be you kicking in a door with a SWAT team with this on. It could be you with this on. Would this be like for under a suit?
Yeah, this is meant for concealability, so it's low pro Kydex. So you have your pistol mags, you have your M4 mags. This is for a medical setup, any type of IFAK kit you might have. This is for a radio, and then the actual pistol is off here. So this is designed to stay very tight to the body. And this is designed by a former DOS guy who was a WPS, a Worldwide Protective Service guy.
So you have your sport coat custom fitted to be a little bit more generous to fit that?
Yes, this is designed to be covert. This is designed to stay tight to the body and not expose the bulges. So you'd have a looser cover garment, and this would be nice and tight on you. And this actually works even with a t-shirt on, assuming you have one size larger t-shirt.
So this is like the
that one.
That kind of stuff.
That's it.
Yeah. And then the big guy that you've got back there, what's going on with that one?
Oh, this is just a training one. This is another like a gun belt, which you see more now at the range. The guys set up their rig however they want.
Battle belt.
Yeah, battle belt. A Cobra attachment here for this guy. It just comes around. I got my kit set up however. This is a training one, as are all of these, but you'd set it up however you want, and it's a quick disconnect Cobra.
I see a lot of guys that train with stuff like this. Like I train with my carry stuff. But I could totally see having something like this, depending on your home situation with family, youngsters, having that all set up, like with the guns in it, ready to go, or if you had to, and with the bump in the night, just, right?
Yeah, quick deploy. It's easy. I got all the things where I'm used to having them at on my kit, and I can throw and go. So that's great. The only downside of this one, unfortunately, is if we start getting into the weapon retention components, that having access, immediate access to this means your belt comes off and you lose whatever you got.
Meaning the bad guy or something in your environment catches on that?
Could. Unlike, say, like a law enforcement setup here, when you try to disconnect this guy, you're going to have to push on two planes at once, right? So this is going to go in, and this is
very unlikely.
Very, very unlikely.
So why do we want to retain the weapon?
So we want to retain the weapon because we're going into a complex environment when we have some type of fight, right? So I have, at least at a minimum, 9 points that I have to worry about, right? 2 fists, 2 elbows, 2 knees, shins or feet, a head. Right, so those things can all hit me and hurt me and take me out of the fight. I want to protect the command center, and in order to do that, I'm going to probably have to get rid of some of my hands. So if I introduce a weapon, it becomes far more complex, right? Not just say, my weapon can come out and he can use it against me, but if we're scuffling and the weapon comes out, a third party, your friend, or a kid can pick it up, or whatever it may be. So I don't want to introduce this unless I intentionally introduce it at the time that I want to introduce it, right? So anytime that I have this, I am responsible for this. This is mine. And so if it were to come out unintentionally, it's on me, which is exactly why I need to train weapon retention. So I retain my weapon.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you suggest people should start outside the waistband training this material. So even if they carry inside the waistband, start OWB as they're immersing themselves in this.
Yeah, so whatever you normally carry, a great spot to start, as Mick has discussed, is outside the waistband, to understand the concepts, the angles, the movements, the positions, okay? Even if you're carrying concealed something on the outside that's not inside the waistband, but you have some type of concealment garment, right? And this is on backwards, so we'll just tuck it like this. And you're gonna carry like this, right? It's going to change what you can do versus carrying something like appendix, right? Which is inside the waistband. So first I would say carry outside in terms of training so that you understand how to manipulate that weapon system, that holster in your body, your belt system, your movement, your angles, and then move to appendix last. Appendix is a little bit different because it's more theory based and a little bit of your own body manipulation, whereas anything external, whether it's a gun belt or a battle belt, or you just have an external type of whether it's paddle or any type of a belt rig, this guy is going to be a little bit different in the techniques you use. So
just so everybody's understanding, some of what you're saying about being theory-based is I can keep that gun in with my rib cage. I can't do that so easily here. I mean, yes, there's some things I can do, but that's what you're saying to the viewer.
And that's your style of carry is going to be relative, or should be relative, to what your mission is, what your function is, what your ease of access is, right? Obviously, it's harder for people to access your weapon here in front of you. It's much easier for them when it's behind you or to the side, but there are a lot of conflicts that we have when we carry it here in terms of our movement, our mobility, and our ability to extract it when we need it. So that's another conversation.
I always tell folks when they talk about holsters, of course, this is like the highest iteration of, well, maybe not highest, but one of the highest iterations of, this one's beaten old, of retention, right? There's multiple retention devices on here to keep the gun in the holster. And then you go to the opposite end of the spectrum, something that's just a sock, really, and in this one, a pretty flimsy metal clip. There's a big trade-off, though, between concealability. I can conceal this in pretty much any articles of clothing, but then accessibility and the ability to retain it. So it's like a constant trade-off. The easier it is to conceal, probably the harder it is for you to get at, and the easier it is to conceal, the less apparatus there is to connect to you. It's probably the easier it is, it's going to get ripped off of you too, right? If I put this in some gym shorts and there's just a little drawstring, it's pretty easy for that to get ripped off of you. So as you're buying this stuff, you have to think about, if somebody's on top of me beating my ass, is this going to stay on me? Probably not.
I concur. So one is that you have to get the right gear for your mission, the right gear for your carry, the right gear for your weapon system or tool. And then two is you have to train how you're going to move, how you're going to operate, how you're going to function, and then how you're going to deal with someone trying to take away your tool.
I think one other thing I would add to that is something that you can all do with an empty gun. Just put the stuff on and do some jumping jacks. Do a couple push-ups, do a couple air squats, sprint up and down the stairs in your house, and if your shit falls out, it's probably
That's an indicator.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to call it a minor indicator.
Yeah, you see that constantly in training because people set up their stuff and it looks good, but then there's no gravity.
Pressure test. It doesn't matter how cool it looks. It doesn't matter how good it feels. If you don't pressure test it, it's no good.
Key concepts of retaining the gun.
First thing is protect the command center, right? This is critical to the fight. I'm not an advocate for this, but if you practice a style that puts two hands on the gun in defense of the gun and the command center goes down, that person's going to access your gun regardless of how many hands you have over the gun. So protect the command center.
Yeah.
This is critical. This is where everything is coming from. So if you don't protect this is irrelevant, okay? Control hands. Control hands doesn't mean I have to use two hands to control one of his hands or two of his hands, okay? One hand can protect, one hand can control. So control of hands. Hands are what kill typically, right? Although there are some very minor exceptions to the rule. Generally speaking, mixed
boot knives.
Mixed
Mixed
Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze boot knife can kill you too. But for us normal people, mere mortals, hands, right? Because hands hold the gun, hands hold the bat, hands hold the knife, and hands themselves are blunt force trauma objects. So along with elbows and knees and everything else. So after the hands, right, we want to create angles. So creating the angles, meaning I'm moving myself or I'm moving my adversary in order to get the angle that I need to have an advantage over them, okay, a tactical advantage. And then the very last thing, but not least, right, is act decisively, meaning once I have some type of advantageous position, I have to be able to assess and make a decision that's going to allow me to stay alive, to survive. And if this guy keeps trying to take my gun away, eventually I'm going to lose that fight. So I just need to make the appropriate decision very quickly, act decisively. So protect the command center, control the hands, create angles, and act decisively. So first thing is body positioning, right? I obviously want to blade my body as I naturally would anyway. Cops and military personnel are typically taught to blade their bodies, right? Gun side back. Also, if I'm a striker of any sorts, let's say it's Muay Thai or boxing, strong side is going to be back, which is where my gun's at on my strong side. So this is a natural position. My hands are up, whether I'm writing something or I'm putting my hands up in defensive posture. And now I've got a little bit extra distance between your hand and my gun. So here, if I'm square to you, you're close to it, but I blade back and it's away.
Bought a foot.
I bought a foot. So this is ideal. And then I also have this hand closest to you to deal with you. And it's a distractionary device. And it's also a measuring stick to see the distance. And it can be your head, it can be your chest, it can be dealing with your hands. And you'll typically latch onto something that's in front of you, which gives me a little bit of space. In an open air environment where there's no structure, no wall, nothing, no vehicle to stop me, I can create space and this can last for quite some time. Or you can trap me against a car, against a wall. So we'll look at first how this works in theory, and then we'll look at it in practical application. Okay?
Which means I'm going to have to try to take his gun and he's going to beat me up, which is going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome for me and awesome for you, not for him. So generally speaking, I'll blade my body, which is also a pretty natural stance to be in, right? So normally I have one foot facing him that's square to him, and he's bladed as well, probably because he trains martial arts. But a lot of people will stand square to you, some will blade depending on what their backgrounds are. Bladed for me is better if my gun's here at 3 o'clock. We're starting with exposed as we discussed, just because it's easier to look at. So that means this side's back. My hands are going to be up. That's great. If I think he's coming closer, when he takes a step, I take a step, just like boxing, just like Muay Thai. And now I have this gauge to keep the space. I want to keep the space as long as I can keep it because I can keep my weapon. If I decide he's doing something that's crossed that legal threshold and I can use deadly force, I can access my weapon and do what I need to do. However, usually when we talk about weapon retention, we want to work to keep the weapon in the holster until we decide that's the right time to take it out. And there are going to be a lot of things that have to happen first. So if in this case, as I'm blading, I'm trying to deal with him, and he starts to get a hand out, I actually have retention. So this retention holster, right, is going to keep him from pulling it straight out unless he knows how to align everything. But once he gets on it, the first thing I've got to do when he gets his hand on it is control his hand. If this gun can't come up, this gun can't come out. So no matter where he grabs on the gun, doesn't matter, I want to control just above the meat of his hand at the wrist, because he's not going to be able to extract the weapon. I also want to create some type of frame on him.
You think you're tough because you have a gun?
I am tough. I am tough.
Tough? Give me that gun. Give me that gun.
And this is going to keep that distance the same. Even if he's driving into me, I've got this frame. A big part of the frame is not collapsing inside of 90 degrees. It's keeping that frame outside of 90 degrees. And I want to turn or rotate my hand ever so slightly outward. So when he goes for that gun here, I'm late. I'm already late because I didn't back up when I should have. I control the hand. I control his head or his body at this 90-degree angle, and my arm is outside of 90 degrees. So once I'm in this position, I want some type of good footing. Now in this case, I'm not next to a wall or a car, so we can keep going backwards and I keep working away. Here, I'm probably first gonna lighten him up by throwing knees, by kicking, okay, something to loosen him up just a little bit. And then I'm gonna set up grappling techniques. The first thing that I'm gonna work on is...
So you're not just gonna sit here and play this circle jerk dance?
I'm gonna give my buddy a hug. He needs a hug. Once I'm framed out on him here, I need to disconnect this hand and I need to keep him where he's at. As I do that, I want to change my angle. So protect the command center, control the hands, okay, change or create angles, and then act decisively. And so with that, if I can keep him at this distance because I'm strong outside of 90, I have control of where he needs to pull up to take the gun out, yes, that's gone. This is gone. So now at this point, one, and now as soon as that happens, I'm gonna drive down on his hand, which is against a piece of metal. That does not feel good. And I can tell you when you guys train a lot and you put your hand here, you're gonna tear your hands up, okay? It's part of training. It sucks, but you know what's gonna happen to this guy. So my hand's here. As I make this change, I'll drive down and forward, and this hand's gonna swim under and grab his tricep at the same time. So my hand that's making the frame is gonna swim under, and my shoulder is gonna go on top of his shoulder, here. So now I'm into an arm drag position. I'm gonna take a step to the outside. My gun side's gonna step to the outside. My left hand's gonna pull, and I'm gonna disconnect. And if it's appropriate, because I'm acting decisively, my gun comes out, okay? The legalities of this are complicated, and so I won't discuss them, but act decisively.
What I will discuss with you, though, is you must research, know the laws where you live, what the protocols are for the job that you have, the department, the agency, the state, the province, wherever. You have to know the use of force laws for wherever you live, and as Todd said, apply accordingly.
100%. All right, so to repeat this step. So as he's grabbing for the gun, I failed. I failed because I didn't create space. I needed to create space. At this point in time, I control his hand, I control his head, okay? His dominant hand is back, and if he starts reaching or moving, it's very easy for me to move at this point, okay? Head control. Where the head goes, the body follows, right? So as he reaches, I create my frame, I control his hand. Hand goes down, swim this hand underneath the tricep. As I go forward, my shoulder goes to shoulder, okay? I'm gonna pull behind his tricep and take a step outward, boom, boom. And now I can access my weapon system if it's appropriate.
Take it easy, man.
Yeah, take it easy. I was just wanted to touch your gun. I just wanted to touch your gun.
That's funny shit.
All right. So this is Simple, level 1, basic, basic, basic. Now, let's look at, you know what? Let's use this a little bit. This guy now, we're in a situation where I can't back up and he's accessing the weapon and I want to grab this frame still, right? But he's going to drive into me. So when he drives into me, I really have to know which side is square to me, okay? So his head is on my left side. It's the opposite of the gun side, right? Anytime that this occurs, anytime when he's grabbing your gun, it's lethal force in this particular moment. But watch this hand. This hand comes up and over. And now I have a guillotine here, okay? My girlfriend? I my girlfriend again.
Oh my God! Give me that gun, you.
Sometimes this fails. So when I'm making the frame and he collapses it, oh, that's a failure on my part. You see, I'm not outside of 90. So now he collapses it, I circle into a guillotine. When the guillotine works, I'm done, he goes to sleep, and he's not a threat to me anymore. Yes, very nice. All right, coming back, sometimes he comes in, boom, boom, oh, he collapsed it, I go around to a guillotine. This fails, this doesn't work, he's still fighting me into the wall. So I'm gonna switch, and as I switch, this hand's gonna come off of his throat, under his arm, and to my wrist. At the same time, I'm gonna turn my hips and push my gun toward him. Grab the gun, here. Yeah, he didn't like that. There's a reason he didn't like that. Now this is gonna go up and away. Now Mickey's arm doesn't turn this way, so it won't work very well. So one here is he comes in, boom, I've got my frame, I kept my frame. Watch what's happening. This is coming out, boom, boom, into the table, guns out.
Jeez, man.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
I just wanted to touch your gun.
All right, 2, he comes in, boom, boom, he collapses my frame, circle to a guillotine, try to finish with the guillotine, doesn't work. Thread through, okay, to a kimura. Wrist goes, hips go. Look at my hips. Hips will go forward with the gun, and I'm gonna drive my hips up, and now he's going away. Okay, that's assuming he's on this side. What happens when he's on the other side? So he's here. When his head comes over to this side, I can't do the guillotine anymore unless I let go of his gun hand. I can't do that, right? So from here, I need to change the positioning. So what's available to me is my left hand, okay? With my left hand available, I'm gonna find a doorknob or some type of thing to latch onto. In Mickey's case, this technique is called the reach around. Take this hand, I'm gonna reach over and I'm gonna grab the bridge of his nose.
Ow! Ow!
Yes.
Take it easy, man. I just wanted to touch
your gun.
I don't think I'm concerned about this. Ow!
So he's here. Let's go to this side. He's here. As he reaches here and he's coming in on this side, usually he steps between the legs here. He's pinning you, okay, against a wall or a car with this leg in the middle. And this sucks that I can't turn my hips out. This is where the hand comes over, finds the bridge of that nose, and 45 degrees that way. Boom, boom. And I feed this gun hand back in, and now I disconnect and make my decision. I act decisively. Yeah, sucks. Definitely sucks. Sometimes I screw up. Not much, but sometimes I do. So sometimes as I make the wrong decision at the wrong time to extract my weapon, guess what happens? He gets a hold of it. When he gets a hold of it, notice this. Because I'm trained to be like this, when he grabs a hold of my hand, my finger's caught. So the guys that think they're just gonna cant the gun and pull the trigger, when their finger's caught, it doesn't work that way. Okay, you don't even have a one-shot wonder at this point. So now when he's got that here, one hand or two, it doesn't make any difference what he has, I need head control. So this is gonna control space. Head control. I don't lose my master grip. Thankfully for us, we spent a lot of time working on master grips, which means this is very strong, and he's got me trapped in it, which is great. I'm controlling his head. Once I control his head to my body, I bring my knee up, drive my knee down.
Jeez.
Yeah, feels good. Metal, hands, soft hands, hard metal. All right, so One hand, doesn't matter. Control the head the same way. I'm gonna cant it a little bit further away because I'm gonna get it away from that hand. This knee is gonna come up and it's gonna drive down and across as I pull the weapon toward my body, okay? Control, drive down and in, and then you got whatever you need, but get your arm out of the way.
That's legit.
All right, now, sometimes it doesn't happen down here, right? It happens at a higher level because I hesitated and I didn't act decisively. And sometimes when that happens, we're in this spot. This is a problem, different type of problem. So now I have muzzle high, port high. So with this happening, I'm not gonna get my knee up there. I don't have the flexibility to do it. It's not gonna work out very well for me, okay? So what I wanna do in this particular case is underhook. Underhook at the hands. And I'm gonna use my shoulders with my weapon to go left, right.
It's impossible to hold on to.
Sometimes you get a freak of nature who can hold on to it, and when you underhook it, left and right doesn't work, you go up. Okay?
And that sight's tearing you up.
Oh, this sight will hurt you.
Yeah.
I promise it will hurt you. So, high, it doesn't matter if he's grabbing this way or if he reverses his grip, grab the other way. Doesn't matter. Underhook, right? And I'm underhooking right here. Hand can be open, hand can be closed. You can pull it back to you, but wag the dog's tail. Boom, boom. Come back.
You're using all of your muscles.
I'm using my whole upper body, my torso turning, but my shoulders are what are driving left
And
to
if you
right.
scan up and down, though, you can see as he's doing that movement, it's a whole body movement. I mean, you're not just pivoting at the waist, your feet, your ankles,
Correct.
everything.
But what creates the pressure is very similar to like a Russian tie. So when he ties up here, when I turn my shoulder, look what happens to his shoulder. There's too much pressure, which is what allows me to get into this position because it's uncomfortable. Oh, that doesn't feel good, right? Same thing happens in that position. It's my shoulder that's turning that drives it, okay? So it's the front wheels of the car. It's not where the power is coming from, but it's what's moving it, directing it.
I dig it. All right, so you've showed us some of the holster stuff, and of course this is just a little bit of what's available. You've talked some classroom concepts, although I felt you were being a little bit rough with me. What's next?
Well, we're standing right now, and we were standing. Let's take it to the ground. Let's look at the same concept, but applied on the ground.
All right, so not every fight, people are on their feet.
Fights start on their feet and some end up on the ground, and that's where we typically get into a shitstorm.
You said some, so not every fight ends up on the ground.
I'm gonna say no on that one.
Check that out in the next video in this series.